Hello, good evening. You're most welcome to today's session. We're so glad to have you all in your different capacities. Just type in the chat box where you're joining us from. Where, as usual, you have Trevor, who is joining us from the United Kingdom. Trevor, you're most welcome, and thank you for dedicating your time to teach the globe principles of transformation and leadership through the Youth Campus Project. Over to you, Trevor. May you see how you can take us to the next level. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great, thank you. Good to see everybody. Welcome. Special welcome this evening to Ayan Said, and she's our special guest this evening. So I look forward to talking with her later on. So tonight is session number 10 of 12 of the Youth Campus Project. And why does this matter? Everything we've done today, every thought we have had, every action we've taken has been developing our heart and our character. If you take the word, we use the English word engraving. You take a piece of metal and you take a sharp piece of metal and you slowly carve on that piece of metal your name. It's called an engraving because it can't be moved. It can't be taken away. It's strong and it's lasting. Well, that word, engraving, is the word that is used for your character. So every thought you have, every action you take today is carving your character. And as you carve your character and your character gets practiced every day, that will shape your destiny. So if you want to know who you will become in your lifetime, the answer is look at your heart and character because it will tell you. 99.9% of the world's economy is based on trust. And what is trust? It's an issue of heart and character. Where there is no trust, relationships don't work, business doesn't work, community doesn't work, just with that one part of our character. Now, how do we develop it? If everything around us is telling us different message about what matters, what doesn't matter, if our heads are absorbed in other people's voices, in social media, telling us like this, don't like this is where you should spend your energy. What happens is we get distracted in our lives from investing in our heart and character. And yet, it is the most important investment you can make every day. So the Youth Compass Project is designed to help you invest in your heart and character to shape your destiny, to shape who you will become, to become a person who leads their life, who has the pen to write their own life story and doesn't let someone else write it for them. Someone who loves, someone who sees that their life here on this earth exists for the benefit of others and to leave a legacy. What will I do in this life that will outlive me so that even when I'm dead, it will keep on benefiting others? That's called your legacy. So the Youth Compass Project helps you learn how to lead, love, and leave a legacy. It's based on 22 different qualities in an iconic elder that we can look to, someone like Nelson Mandela, and his heart and character and how he invested in himself and became the global elder that he did. And as you and I invest in our heart and character, we can have the aim or the ambition that we too will become elders for our own generation. Now, there are 22 qualities in the Youth Compass Project but in this masterclass, we're only choosing a few of them because the aim of these evenings is to get you started. There are 400 people around the world that have already signed up to the Youth Compass Project from many, many countries across all continents. So they've signed up, but the question is, have they started doing the investment of the Youth Compass Project? So we've put on this masterclass to encourage you, to support you, to help you find your way in. So I'm going to share my screen with you and just talk through briefly again, how do you get started? When I've done that, then I will introduce tonight's special guest. So let me just share my screen. So this week we're on challenge 20 around justice, and we're going to meet with Ayan Said in a moment. So how does the Youth Compass Project actually work? Well, the first thing is you go to the website, youthcompassproject.com. So you go on, you click on there, and you'll see this picture and an explanation, just very briefly, of what the Youth Compass Project is about. If you look below that picture, you will see this video. If you click on that video, it's 2 minutes and 10 seconds long, and it will explain to you very, very quickly what the Youth Compass Project is all about. And then underneath that, when you've watched the video, there is a button that says Start the Youth Compass Project. You click the button and it will take you in to the Youth Compass Project, where you will see this screen. And on this screen, you register your name, an email address, and you create a password. That will allow you to keep getting in to this platform for as long as you need to. And it's free, no cost at all. When you get inside, you will see this. There are 6 modules, and we've been giving examples of these 6 modules over the last 10 weeks. So this week we're on module 5, where it talks about your heart. And if you click on that module tonight with the red circle around it, we're going to do challenge number 20, which is all about developing a sense of justice in the world. Now, each one of these lessons, each of the 22 lessons it's got a very short video explanation where I talk about the challenge. It has a written explanation that you can print off. So if not all of your group has access to a smartphone or a laptop, you can print off the words. You can show them the video on your smartphone or laptop. You can print the words and give them a copy. And then there is a set of questions to think about around that particular challenge. And then there is a place where you can write in or enter or log all of your reflections. So you need to be constantly thinking about, how am I learning in this particular challenge? For example, after tonight, if you went and did the challenge on justice, you could start answering the questions, write down your answers, and be very specific. Not general, but very specific. This situation makes me angry. I'm going to do something about making sure the children in my community get breakfast before they go to school each day. So be very specific, not general. And you keep on building up this log, this continual reflection and learning throughout. The whole purpose of the Youth Compass Project is you keep on doing it, maybe every 6 months or at least once a year, because it's lifelong learning. You never stop developing your heart and character. You keep on working on all these qualities and characteristics until the day you die. So that's what you can just keep on coming back and back and back. So that's just a short explanation, just to encourage you about how this works. And so you can encourage other people on how it works. Each of these master classes that we're doing are recorded, and they are all on the Youth Compass Project website. Also now on the Youth Compass Project website are resources. So a few weeks ago, I told you a free copy of a book. Well, that's on there. Some videos about how you can learn to mentor other young people. That's on there. A number of other resources are all on there and they're all for free. So this week, I am delighted to welcome Ayan Said, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can talk live with Ayan. Ayan, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
That's great. Now, you're calling us in from London tonight?
I'm at Cornwall. I've gone a bit to the southwest,
To the
by the
southwest.
coast.
Okay, great. A very, very beautiful part of the country. So anyway, we're delighted to have you, Ayan. And so I met Ayan, I don't know how many years, 3, 4 years ago, Ayan, was it?
Yeah, four
Through
years
the
ago, 24.
through
Yeah.
the international organization One Young World, which is an amazing organization, youth organization. So I got to know Ayan through that organization and got to know a little bit about her work and was very inspired by what she was doing. So I thought, knowing something of Ayan's heart, this would be a great subject to ask her to talk to us about. So, Ayan, I'm going to start on this issue of justice by asking you, first of all, to tell us your story and just take your time.
Wow.
You know, we're all interested in what shapes us, what forms us into who you are today. And then in a minute, I'll ask you about what you're doing now. But just tell us your story, because you're dual heritage. So you've got a very interesting story, and we'd love to hear it.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone, and thank you all for making the time to hold this space and connect on something that's very dear to my heart. I would say I have many stories in a lifetime, and all these different stories that have shaped who I am today are because of my identity. And whether that might be being East African, I'm Somali, it might be being British. I was raised in Europe for the past 25 years, or whether it's my religion as a Muslim woman. And I also believe that God has really been the foundation to my story, always seeking guidance and trying to understand what my purpose is, what my destiny is, where can I add value. So when my family and I left my country, it was due to civil war. So I was essentially born into a conflict zone. And then going from that and growing up in that for the formative years of my life allowed me to really see how injustices and violence can disrupt us and who we are. And then when I migrated to the UK, I had the label of being a migrant. And then the more I grew up, I had gender coming in and what I can do as a girl, what I can do as a woman. And all these different things shaped the different experiences that I've had. But across it all, I held on to God and I held on to education in Islam. The first commandment is Iqra, which translates to read. And I really combined this and loved reading when I was young. And I loved whenever I could get access to anything that helped me develop, I consumed that. And then I became a science teacher to share that love of education, love of learning, but to also give the next generation of young people that had different identities and different stories to become active citizens, to become active people in how their story becomes. Because for me, it took a lot of trials and errors to understand who I was becoming and to understand what my purpose was. But I did that for 10 years. I worked in Africa. I came back to the motherland. I worked in the Middle East and I taught in very different communities within the UK where over 50% of young people are living in poverty. And from then, I continued really seeing the gaps, especially what happens after education, what happens after young people leave school. And there was too many gaps and not enough practical tools and resources. So I founded an organization called Voicing Voices, where I'm trying to teach intergenerationally, both the next generation as well as the ones that came before us that are making decisions. How do we get them involved in our story and in our destiny so that we can build an ecosystem where people can thrive? And I'm still at it. I don't know if it's
Right.
if
It's
it's a
brilliant. Thank
success
you
or
so
not.
much. Can I ask you to, I'm always interested in kind of the emotional side of what leads someone, because you've said it very, clearly, you saw these issues and you started this thing, but I know the truth is there's a whole story just in that one sentence. Can you just kind of unpack that? Exactly what did you see? What did it make you feel? How did you kind of think and respond? And, how do you begin something to address the injustices that you saw? So just slow frame that last sentence and unpack it for us.
Mm, I think the one theme that I saw across these injustices that's more to do with the emotional side is believing that the circumstances or the injustices that we're seeing are normal. A lot of things were normalized, both when I was in East Africa and when I was in Europe. There was a
Give us
lot of
examples of what you saw. What was it you saw that you felt were being normalized?
the political climates and violences that are taking so many lives, both
Mm,
especially the lives of the most marginalized, the lack of access as well to be able to change our conditions. So
mm,
you would see young people that very smart, very able, but there were no tools or resources to bring them to the forefront to be able to be leaders and to drive the change. Instead, we were forced into circumstances that weren't weren't good for us.
mm. Yeah. Wow. Great. Thank you. So keep going. Tell us, what did you do with what you were seeing?
Um, I wanted to make the people part of the solution. I felt like a lot of decisions, for example, one of the issues that I dealt with when I first started voicing voices was gender-based violence. And when we speak of gender-based violence, it's so systemic. It is the conditioning in our society. It's in the self-worth and how women and young girls were viewing themselves and believing that the injustices that were being inflicted on women and young girls, whether it's the lack of access to education, whether it's the lack of access to workplaces and economic empowerment, whether it was the lack of access to be able to say, hey, this is what I've experienced and this is what I'm going through, and there not being support because of shame or various other issues. And I think I started with that campaign first because I do feel like our women are the and girls are the backbone of our society, the backbone of our civilization. And voicing voices arose from that. Our voices are the change that can completely open our doors to possibilities. So I wanted to, and I didn't want to do it just in education systems and schools, and I didn't just want to do it in society. I wanted to address the systems that were causing this, the healthcare systems, the education systems, the workplaces, the global
Wow.
organizations, the governments. It had to be a systemic. It couldn't just be from one place for me.
Brilliant. So let me ask the question then, given that, which is amazing, how did you begin? I mean, like everything starts with a first step and a second step and a third step, and I know how difficult it is. So how did you begin?
I had to look inwardly first. So we have an approach, even in the work that we're doing now with voicing voices, was number one, you start with yourself. What are the pressing issues or injustices that are affecting you? Because I feel like we undermine the intelligence in our lived experiences, the things that we are experiencing, the
Mm,
data, that what we're exposed to. I think first sit with that. And in order for you not to get lost in that amount of injustice or difficulties, it's important you understand your values and your purpose and your boundaries and how you can first strengthen yourself to be able to have an impact in your community or spaces that you are in. And then once I did that and I kind of understood my vision, I even created something called like a personal manifesto where I was like, okay, in the next 5 years, and this was exactly 5 years ago now. So I
wow.
sat down and what is, I know when you asked me to invite me to this podcast, I was like, wow, what a great timing. But
Yeah, very good.
we started with
Celebration.
visualizing what does the next 5 years look like.
Yeah,
And I worked backwards, my ideal change that I wanted to see. And then I worked backwards on how I could achieve that.
yeah,
And then second one that I wish I knew much sooner, but I only learned after, is relationships as well. The people around you, your networks, those that are in spaces of leadership that you have access to. Just sit down and have a conversation, communicate, collaborate, see where we can build that interconnectedness. So those two were very levels were very important for us.
Great, thank you. Now, looking at your website and in conversations that we've had, you have a particular approach in your work. I'm calling them 4 levels. You might not use that word. I don't know what word you use, but there's kind of 4 levels that I see. I wonder whether you could just talk us through your approach to tackling injustice. That would be, and just take your time, kind of unpack each one. That would be great.
I think level 1, as mentioned, even when you're starting out, when you're doing your values and manifesto, is to understand the research and data. Because we're not the first to create solutions, where one thing I really loved about the work that I'm doing is so many have come before us that have paved the pathway in our own communities, in our own countries, in our own cultures, and in what we are witnessing. So really grounding ourselves with the data and statistics and what is actually going on. And there's so much misinformation and disinformation going on. So it's important, again, we really connect with these challenges through a lived experience lens and understand the realities and the stakeholders and the people involved in that. And then once you do that, you look at the culture as well. So even injustice is happening, is it being reinforced by the culture, the people, the policies, the things that are in place? What is that doing to it? And really analyzing, we call this user framework.
You were starting to say that there is the issue of injustice that I'm seeing. Is it being reinforced by the culture, the
cultures?
But what's going on? Yeah.
Yep. And I think it's important that we also recognize the enablers of injustices or the disablers that are stopping you from activating your full potential. And some of these things can be our own doubts. Sometimes doubt can creep in, and there's an internal culture within us that might give us, it might be confidence, it might be, can I do this? Am I able to do this? And that self-doubt, I think that's a big battle that will constantly come back up and you'll have to deal with. But also what enablers and spaces around you can reinforce that to support with addressing those injustices and challenges. And then the third aspect is how can the institutions around us support that, and how can we look at systemically addressing this? And the reason why it's very important for me, for example, in my journey on why it has to be systemic is I don't know how many people have heard of the concept of intersectionality, which is essentially relating that we're not linear, we're not a singular thing, we're multidimensional beings. We're from very different genders, different cultures, different ways of thinking. So the solutions that we create have to also be multidimensional, and they have to be holistic, and they have to look at the individuals, the communities, the systems, and the structures that are preventing us from achieving justice.
Wow, thank you. That's very clear. Thank you very much. So we have a lot of young people with us listening. If an individual sees an area of injustice that they feel strongly about, where would they begin? So you've given us some great concepts, and I'm just saying, if you were to be coaching someone on the call tonight, one-on-one, and they said, look, I've seen this issue. Every child in my community goes to school hungry, or whatever it may be. What would you say to them? How do we begin?
Pick what matter, what you can. I always say we can have big dreams, but we have to start small. And so start with what that thing might be to you. It might be climate, it might be corruption, it might be gender equity, it might be inequality in education, it might be the massive digital divide that we're seeing and the tech inequalities. And then once you kind of, as I said, do that research and understanding of the problem, where do you start? So do you speak to your school? Do you speak to your family as well? Really understanding the conversations intergenerationally as well. For me, when I wanted to understand all the different challenges women were having and the issues we were experiencing, I had a sat down with my mother, and I kind of understood the cultural element, the religious element, and the various issues that impacted her in her experience. And that really helped motivate me, it helped empower me, it helped give me an anchor on why this issue was important, and it gave me a sense of purpose. And then once you do that, is what tools do I have access to? I used YouTube. If on our YouTube account, I created, because as I mentioned, November is the UN Women's 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence. So 5 years ago, when we did this first campaign, we went on YouTube and I literally created an education series to raise awareness in our communities on what is gender-based violence, how does it happen, why does it happen? So the research that I gained from step one. And then once that takes place, and for you, you might use Instagram, you might use websites and blogging and social, whatever you have accessible, something easy, something that doesn't burden you, isn't costly, is very important, because if you add all these different barriers, you would lose motivation. So it's important to start with things that are very accessible to you. And then once I did the YouTuber and I put that out there, and I went and spoke to other people and other groups and other networks. It could be youth networks that you might have access to. It might be online groups. It might be your neighbors and you create a group yourself, but build a community to support your vision and what you're trying to achieve. Also document everything. I think that's another thing I learned a bit too late. Even if it's at school or at work or wherever you may be, create a document, all the things that you're doing. Because what this does is it allows you to give you motivation to see all the impact you're having. But sometimes also when you want to communicate the project that you're working on, having this document allows you to easily remember everything. And don't be afraid. Be as courageous, as brave as you can be, even when it feels difficult to do so. I think it's that constant nursing yourself and parenting yourself to keep going. And if you have built the community, that would also be a big help towards addressing that.
Yeah, that's so clear. Thank you. That really is clear. So I know from my own work that tackling injustice can take a huge demand on you, the person, huge demand, physically, emotionally, coming up against people who disagree with you, challenge you, all kinds of demands. So, and you may be touching on it when you use the word community, but who do you need around you in order to tackle injustice? If you were to say to people, look, you need these kinds of people around you as a personal team, what would you say?
Personally, I needed God. I know some people might not be religious, but this could be a higher calling, something greater that goes beyond humans. I think
Yes,
that's
great.
very important, to have something that grounds you in making sure that you are well in addressing this. So for me, my faith was a very important part of all of this. And then after that, I think also people that see the best in you, or people that believe in you, was very important, because as I said, you have a lot of self-doubt. And I also want to let you know, it's not just a self-doubt that's a mental or emotional. I got physically ill and had to go into hospital because of how burdensome and heavy this is, because a lot of the times when we're dealing with injustices, it's personal, because we might have experienced, or we might have seen people close to us experience it. So it really takes a physical toll on your nervous system. So really having people that care about you and believe in you to tell you, okay, you know, care about yourself, make sure you hold space to do self-care and various things, just so that you don't get exhausted, is very, very important. To have mentors who have done this is also very, very important. You can research them online, you can get recommendations and see who's in the field that you are in, or tackling the issues you're dealing with. But that allows you to see, because you can't be what you can't see sometimes. So having someone there that you can look up to is very important. When I was going through all of this, Trevor was my mentor, and he, really saw the power of the work that we're doing and ensuring, and he was working on intergenerational leadership as well. So that was really helpful. Have people your age group as well, your fellow fighters who are experiencing this with you. It's very important to also connect with people in your own age group and communities, and sponsors. And what the difference between a mentor and coach and a sponsor is someone that's already in the room, that will open the room for you, that will speak on your behalf when you're not in the room. And they allow you to access opportunities that you might not have been aware of. So I think these sponsors, peers that can go through the journey with you are really important.
Really clear. Thank you so much. Now, you mentioned that word a moment ago, intergenerational. So that's really interesting because on this call we have youth, but we have people who would regard themselves as older, elder, who are interested in how to support. And so, how do we work intergenerationally to tackle injustice?
By recognizing that's the only way. There's no way we can achieve the visions and goals locally, internationally. None of the goals can be done without an
Yeah.
intergenerational leadership. In addition to that as well, young people make up majority of the world, and it's I think something that every young person can take inspiration from, that you are a force that really can shift a lot of things because you bring innovation, you bring more clarity, you bring courage. Gen Z and the younger generation, the courage that they have, I don't think my generation had as much courage as they have. And that's why I truly believe the next generation can build the movements that we need to heal people, planet, and our purpose. But the older generation bring insight on the political climate, and in a way they bring a map to help us understand how to bring this courage and innovation and creativity that we have. They also hold historical memory and wisdom on why these systems are the way they are, or why we have these injustices seeped into every aspect of our existence, essentially. And they also have the networks, what I said about the sponsors part. They have the networks and the understanding of the strategy that works in the world. And I believe when the two come together, it creates intergenerational intelligence. It's really, really the kind of intelligence that combines energy with experience and vision, and provides that multi-layered bridge where we can each cover each other's blind spots, essentially.
Great. That's really helpful. Thank you. Do you have an example where an actual example how that works for you in your work?
Yes, that's kind of one of the reasons I'm here in Cornwall as well, on how do we build, because in what's happening in the workplace and the businesses that we work with now is that there's an older generation that is about to retire and leave work, and we have a young professionals that are also coming in to the workforce. And what we do is we hold workshops with them, and we bring a challenge, an injustice, or something that isn't working, and we get them to ideate and co-design
Oh, you
together
bring
and
them
come up with
together and do that.
solutions.
Yeah.
Pardon?
You bring them together and do that.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal how much, and usually in traditional methods, there's this assumption and power dynamic that the elders know more and the younger generation doesn't know that. But in these spaces, the older generation learns from the younger generation and the younger generation learns. So it's a two-way knowledge sharing space, and it's phenomenal. It's really, really great.
Wow. That's really encouraging. Very good. Let me just go in one last area, the area of inclusivity.
Yeah.
There's so much going on where people are being called other or different or of a different group, different tribe. You don't belong. You're not part of my group. Can you talk to me about justice and inclusivity?
Yes, I think I've mentioned the concept of intersectionality.
Yes.
And for me, inclusion isn't just inviting me because I'm a young person, it's inviting me because of the fact that I have lived experience in all these different cultures and spaces. And when people tell us, oh, you're just a girl, or you're just this, they are dividing your identity. And for me, justice is being able to show up as a whole self and being accepted and having a sense of belonging. There's no point inviting someone to an event and not speaking to them. That's not inclusion. You can't say, well, I've invited you, but I'm not speaking to you. As an example, inclusion is in how we make people feel, how we make people share themselves, and how we help people unlock their full potential in all areas, not just in terms of youth, but in terms of gender, in terms of race, in terms of heritage, in terms of ethnicity.
Yeah. Have you had an example recently where you've seen that working really well, where you've gone, wow, this feels like inclusion?
Yes, I recently was with a community that was building a space for neurodiverse people.
You want to just explain
So,
what that word means for everyone, just so
so neuro, so neurodiversity is people that think and see and process information differently. So
yeah.
you can have ADHD. I'm ADHD, so I really look at. I'm very hyperactive. I can see patterns in certain problems, which has been really helpful in helping me do the work that I do. But workplaces saw that as problematic. When I was in school, I was known as being disruptive, or I talk too much, or it gave me a negative connotation, which
Yeah.
really knocked down my confidence. But now in this organization that we were a part of, we're building a space where if you prefer quiet, then there's a quiet area. If you want to work and collaborate, there's a space that where you can work and collaborate. So instead of forcing ourselves to be small to fit in, they're designing the space for, so that's accessibility. Now you can show up as whoever you are in that space because there's a place for every aspect of your identity and how you show up.
Very good. Good example. Thank you. So, is there anything else we haven't covered that's kind of on your mind that you think, we need to hear about this in regarding challenging injustice?
Every time you're told you can't do something or you don't have the ability to do something, know that the superpower is in knowing that you have the exact skills needed. When I
Yeah.
was told because of gender or race I wasn't able, those things became my superpower. So
Wow.
honor who you are. I think honor who you are, where you're from, what you're about, and believe in that. Be your first advocate. You need to be your first advocate for.
Be your first advocate. I like that.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. Well, that's a great message. Now, I think just before we let you go, I'm going to ask people, do you have one or two questions for Ayan that you would like to ask around this issue of injustice? And if you do, type it quickly now into the chat box, and let's see if we can answer a couple of these questions. We've got a few minutes, so does anyone have a question that we could use Ayan's wisdom to unpick
You're too kind.
on the area of injustice? I think people are quite shy, Ayan.
It's okay.
So we'll
But
just
thank you for.
we'll give them a moment.
And if anyone wants to, feel free to do a follow up and message you. You have my details.
Great,
Just
thank you. And
and you're open
you
to
just
that.
when you and I end in a moment's time, if you type in Voicing Voices website into the chat box as well, people can follow up on you. Great. So the guy called Brian asking a question about, does justice reduce in Somalia in the 21st century? So I'm not quite sure. Does
I
that mean,
think
do you think it is reducing in Somalia this
I
century
think
or
the
not?
biggest issue in my country, and a lot of our countries have, is tribalism,
Yeah.
and really the ways that we are engaging and with one another. So I don't think it has reduced. It makes me very sad because that's
Okay.
my homeland, but all we can do is hope, and all I can hope is the next generation of young people will really transform and humanize our countries.
Thank you. Thanks for that answer. And thanks, Brian, for the question. Are there any other questions?
Someone said, hearing this twice today, I think it's meant to be.
Be your first
That's a
advocate.
sign.
Isn't that a great? I love that. Be your first advocate.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
sign. That's a sign.
Good.
And I think what helps is what I said about that personal manifesto, writing down um, what is you, who are you becoming, and what does that look like, and then you
Yeah.
have to protect it like a child, the way you would protect a little child.
Very
Protect
good.
your dream that way as well.
Yeah, and I love that because that's exactly what we're trying to do with the Youth Compass Project. Who are you becoming? Now, Patrick has asked a question, says, does everybody need justice?
Does everybody deserve to be human, to live a life like a human without the injustices? And sometimes it's not even do we need justice from the outside world, there's also justice within ourselves. I believe that our life is a trust that we have to look after. So this could be your health, internal justices. This could be making sure you're reaching your full potential. And if you're not, that's an injustice you're causing to yourself,
Yeah,
in that sense, if there's no external factors.
great. Thank you for that. And thanks, Patrick. So Rajab has just asked a question. What motivates you, Ayan, to keep walking on the path you choose, regardless of all the negative voices that you may encounter? Good
Youth,
question.
I'll be very honest, young people, because bear in mind, I started this journey as a teacher. I was a secondary school teacher, and seeing how the energy, the enthusiasm, the motivation of young people drives me. And then I'll think to myself, every year I think to myself, okay, God, maybe I'm not worthy, or maybe I'm not strong enough, or maybe I'm not good enough to do this or to complete my purpose. And then I will encounter spaces like this and experiences like this, and I'll be like, oh my God, okay, I'll get up and go again. And it's literally been like that. You will fall so many times. You will think, I cannot do this. I'm going to quit. I'm done. I'm going to hide away. And then the people you impact and the work that you're doing just calls you back and says, you're not done yet. So you keep going. That's
That's a very beautiful and honest answer. Thank you, Ayan, very much. Thanks for those who asked the question. So, Ayan, I want to say thank you so much, and
yeah.
I've enjoyed knowing you from our very first conversation those years ago. I love
Likewise.
what you're doing. I love the humanity that you bring, the passion, the energy, the resilience, and I was going to say the fight. I don't know whether that's the right word, but there is
It is every day.
there is a. So I love that about you. So thank you so much for giving time this evening. And anybody who's got a screen where you can do a virtual clap, then you can send that to Ayan. But for now, Ayan, thank you very
Thank you.
much. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
So let me just draw the evening to close with just some other thoughts around this whole subject of justice. You know, one of the things I notice is that when we're very young children, often we hear a child say, that's not fair. So there's something about young children where it's inbred almost, it's part of the DNA, that we are acutely aware of injustice around. Now, there's a whole negative side of that, as parents will tell you, but that means there's something important to our humanity about being aware of and tackling injustice. It's how we become more human is developing this quality of pursuing justice. That's why it's in the Youth Compass Project. The Youth Compass Project, and Ian just kind of alluded to it a moment ago, is to become fully human. What does it mean? What it means to be a person who pursues justice as well as courage and resilience. All of these are qualities of being fully human. When I started Emerging Leaders, so I founded the NGO Emerging Leaders, I was in one of the informal settlements at that time in Lusaka in Zambia. And for those of you from Zambia this evening, good evening, and you're very welcome. But I was in the township called Chawama in Zambia, and it was a time when HIV, the impact was at its highest. The middle-aged generation had been stripped out because they died of HIV. We had the grandmas, and we had so many young children wandering the streets, and they weren't getting to eat, and they weren't going to school, and they weren't getting access to the feeding centers, and they weren't getting access to medicine. And I've been some places where there's not even enough room for the children to sleep at night. They have to come and sleep in shifts. So I saw this, and something in me said a very deep sense of this is not okay. This is not okay. And that began the journey for me. And I kind of want to say that to you because you will walk through your life and you will see things where you go, that's not okay. I have worked with so many young people now across Africa who have said it's not okay that those children don't have shoes to go to school. It's not okay that they're going um, and they're going hungry. They don't even have breakfast. Or it's not okay that they don't get fed in the middle of the day. It's not okay that they can't afford books. It's not okay that they're beaten up the way they're beaten. So it's whatever it is, because there are so many injustices in the world. And I don't think we're called to deal with them all. I think we're called to deal with the one or ones that you are on the planet here to deal with. And you'll know that because you'll be awake and you'll say, there are many things that I see that upset me, but this one thing, this is not okay. I cannot walk away from this. And so I think that's where it begins, is that deep emotional in the heart, I keep pointing to the heart, sense of this is not okay. So let me just share my screen again and just share a couple of thoughts. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, after the Second World War, all the nations of the world got together and said, what does justice mean? And they set it out in a number of articles. And Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. So it's written there right at the beginning that we are all equal in dignity and rights. So the minute we see anybody's rights being denied or their dignity being denied, we know we are in the issue of injustice. I won't go through all of this, but there are many forms of injustice. There's inequality, there's prejudice, discrimination, climate injustice, nepotism, where we use our power over someone. We talked about this last week. Gender violence, trafficking, labor exploitation, dehumanizing, child soldiers, violation of human rights. All of this is explained in that challenge number 20 when you get to it in the Youth Compass project. I think very quickly, from my perspective, there's 4 steps to tackling injustice. Number 1 is what I call proximity. You've got to get close to the person or the issue. It's very hard to hate someone who is your friend. Get close to them. You can't just look at something from a distance because you won't understand it. Get close, see it, feel it, be with people who are in that particular area of injustice. Brian Stevenson, who is, I think, the next Mandela, says it is in proximity that we understand things that we cannot understand from a distance. Secondly, empathy and compassion. It means feel the pain of other people and suffer with them. Gracia Machel was Nelson Mandela's wife, and she said, it's the meaning of what my life has been since I was a youth to try and fight the issues for dignity and freedom of my own people. Third thing, together, we all belong to each other. Now, you'll see when you do the Youth Compass project, there is a whole challenge called Ubuntu. And Ubuntu means I am human through my relationships with others. You are you through other people. Ubuntu says I am a human only because of you. That if I undermine you, I am dehumanizing myself. So we're all wrapped up. If we don't deal with injustice, we're actually dehumanizing ourselves. So that's why we deal with injustice, because it's how we rehumanize even ourselves. And the last thing is take a step. Take a step. When you take one step, the system changes. It has to. That's systems theory. Just do one thing and everything has to shift a little bit. Do a lot of little things and the system has to shift more and more. It's only when we do nothing that nothing changes. So that's the end of this week's challenge on justice. Now, next week, we've got 2 more to go. Week number 11, we're going to look at challenge number 22 on generosity. And I am delighted. I had a chat with Martin Kalunga Banda, who was here recently, and I said, would you come back and be interviewed with your wife, Aggie, to look at this issue of generosity? And he was delighted to come and talk about the issue of generosity. So can I encourage you to be here early next week? Because he will be here early. And can I encourage you to invite friends? Do what Patrick in Uganda has done and get your screen in front of 30 other people so they can watch too. Let's see if next week we can't mobilize many, many young people to come and listen to this great elder and his wife of our time. So I want to thank Ayan again for her really great input this evening, really wise and encouraging. And I want to thank Ivan and the team in Uganda again, because they are tirelessly committed to making this masterclass happen. They have been totally reliable, which for me is priceless. So thanks, Ivan and the team. So I wish you all a great rest of your evening, and I look forward to seeing you at exactly the same time next week. So have a great evening. Bye.